What would you do if you stumbled upon a terrified 10-year-old girl and her baby brother hiding in the attic of a crumbling mansion, abandoned by everyone left to fend for themselves in a house that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets? Ethan Cross, a ruthless real estate mogul, never expected to find himself tangled in a story of survival and corruption when he first set foot in that mansion. What began as just another property to flip quickly turned into a discovery that would change his life forever. As he stood in that eerie attic looking at Emma and Noah, Ethan realized that the mansion wasn't just a relic of the past, it was hiding something far darker than he could have ever imagined. And as the story unraveled, the stakes only grew higher, pushing Ethan into a battle far more dangerous than any real estate deal he had ever faced. With the weight of the truth on his shoulders, he had to decide, would he risk everything to expose the horrifying secrets buried deep within Horizon Pharmaceuticals, or would the cost be too high for him and the children he had promised to protect? Stay with us as this gripping story unfolds. Trust me, you won't believe where it leads. Ethan Cross, a ruthless real estate mogul from Los Angeles, was used to chasing properties that could turn into gold mines. But this time, something felt different. When his longtime scout, Jack Turner, approached him with a lead about a decaying Victorian mansion in Brookdale County, Ethan had his doubts. It was just another old house, right? Another deal to flip. But Jack was insistent, dropping a thick folder onto Ethan's desk with images that promised something more. The mansion wasn't just old, it was ancient. Half of its windows were shattered, ivy crawled up the stone facade, as if nature itself was trying to reclaim it. It stood as a forgotten relic, buried in time and shrouded in mystery. Ethan's pulse quickened when he looked closer. There was something haunting about it. Something almost alive. He felt it before he even laid eyes on it. "I want to see it," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper, now intrigued by the strange allure the mansion held. An hour later, Ethan's sleek black SUV rumbled down the winding roads of Brookdale County. The trees, bare and twisted, lined the path like skeletal sentinels guarding some forgotten secret. As they neared the mansion, the skyline of Los Angeles felt far behind him, swallowed by the vast emptiness of the countryside. The mansion loomed in front of them, its towering roofline slicing through the gray sky, a rusted wind vane creaking on top. The gate, once grand, groaned open as if reluctantly inviting them in. As Ethan stepped out, the air was thick with dust. It hung in the stillness like an omen. The silence was unsettling. Even Jack, usually so eager to talk shop, fell quiet. Ethan glanced over at him, noticing the unease etched on his face. "It's like the house is waiting," Jack muttered, his voice barely audible, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the shadows lurking inside. The door creaked open, its hinges protesting, as though they hadn't felt a human touch in years. Stepping inside, the floors moaned underfoot, the air stale, but something more insidious was at play here. The house didn't just feel abandoned, it felt cursed, as if the memories of its past had settled into every crack and crevice, unwilling to leave. It felt wrong, like they were trespassing on something far darker than old wood and dust. Ethan's eyes scanned the grand foyer. The opulence was still visible, even beneath the years of decay. The marble staircase, though cracked, still held a haunting beauty. But as they ascended, something shifted. A sound, a faint creak, echoed through the upper floors. Ethan froze, his heart pounding in his chest. "What was that?" he asked, his voice low, sharp with instinct. "Probably raccoons or something," Jack said with a nervous chuckle. But even he didn't seem convinced. Ethan's instincts told him otherwise. This wasn't the sound of wildlife. It was the sound of something else, something alive. Grabbing a flashlight, Ethan made his way up the narrow staircase. The air grew colder with each step, and the walls seemed to close in on him. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched out before them, dark, oppressive, and lined with peeling wallpaper. Forgotten relics from another time littered the floor, broken toys, old furniture draped in dust, memories of a life that once existed here. And then his eyes caught something. Footprints, small, fresh ones. His heart rate quickened. The floor creaked under his feet as he followed the prints down the darkened hall. Every step felt heavier, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for him to uncover what it had kept hidden for so long. The attic door loomed ahead, barely ajar, the cold air rushing out as though the house itself was exhaling. Ethan pushed the door open. the hinges groaning as it revealed the darkness beyond. The attic was dimly lit, the only light coming through cracks in the rotting roof. The air smelled of mold dust and something faintly metallic. Broken furniture sat under white sheets like forgotten monuments to the past. Then in the farthest corner, Ethan saw her. A little girl no older than 10 crouched in the shadows, clutching something wrapped in a blanket. Her cheeks were hollow, her eyes wide with terror, frozen in place like a deer caught in headlights. She trembled as if the very sight of a stranger had shattered her fragile world. And in her arms something moved. Ethan's breath hitched. He took a step closer, his voice soft but steady. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." The girl didn't respond. She just clutched the bundle tighter, her eyes never leaving his. And then as he approached the bundle, let out a soft cry. Ethan's heart slammed into his chest. A baby, a tiny, fragile life. He knelt down carefully, his voice gentle. "What's your name?" After a long pause, the girl finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Emma. And this is my brother Noah." Ethan's mind reeled. A 10-year-old girl alone with a baby, hiding in an abandoned mansion for who knows how long. "Where are your parents?" he asked, his voice trembling. Emma's lips quivered. "Mom said she'd come back. It's been 2 weeks." Ethan's heart sank. This wasn't just neglect. This was abandonment, something darker, more insidious. The girl wasn't just lost. She had been left here, left to fend for herself and her baby brother in this decaying house. "You can't stay here," Ethan said, his voice soft but firm. "It's not safe." Emma looked at him, her wide eyes searching his face. "Are you going to take us away?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Ethan nodded, his hand reaching out. "Yes, I'm going to take you somewhere safe, somewhere warm." For a long moment, Emma didn't move. But slowly, with a trembling hand, she reached out, clutching Noah closer to her chest. Ethan took her hand, and something shifted in that moment. It wasn't just the house that had changed, it was him. As they descended the stairs, the mansion seemed to grow darker behind them, mourning the secret it had just revealed. The rusted gate groaned as they passed through it, the sound echoing through the quiet night, a final farewell to a place of terror. "I'm so sorry for the interruption, but stay with us for the next part. The story is far from over, and I can promise you it will only get more intense from here." Do you think Ethan made the right choice by helping Emma and Noah, or should he have left the mystery alone? Let me know what you think in the comments. Also, where are you watching from? I'd love to know which country you're tuning in from. Don't forget to hit the like button and share this video if you believe in second chances. The drive back to Riverside Heights felt like a blur. Ethan Cross's SUV cut through the darkness, the headlights illuminating the winding road ahead. In the rearview mirror, he could see Emma huddled in the back seat, clutching her baby brother Noah protectively against her chest. The sight of them, so fragile, so vulnerable, gnawed at him. The mansion, the house that had been their prison, was now behind them. But the weight of its dark secrets still hung over him like a storm cloud. As they neared his penthouse, Ethan's mind raced. The events of the night, the discovery of Emma and Noah, the way she had looked at him with those wide, fearful eyes haunted him. What had happened to them? Why had they been left in that decrepit mansion? And where was their mother, Sarah Evans? When they arrived at Riverside Heights, the gleaming skyline of Los Angeles seemed like another world. Ethan's penthouse towered above the city, a fortress of steel and glass. But even within its walls, the unease didn't subside. He helped Emma and Noah into the building where his assistant Samantha Reed was already waiting. Her eyes widened when she saw the children, but she said nothing. She knew better than to ask questions at a time like this. "Get the guest room ready," Ethan told her, his voice tight. "And have someone bring baby supplies, diapers, formula clothes. Everything." Samantha didn't hesitate. Of course, she said, her expression serious as she rushed off to handle the details. Ethan led Emma and Noah into the guest room, which had been quickly prepared for them. Emma stepped inside cautiously, her small hands still clutching Noah. The room was warm, welcoming a sharp contrast to the cold, desolate mansion they had just escaped. Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she seemed to be holding her breath, as if expecting someone to come rushing in at any moment. "You're safe here," he said, trying to reassure her. He wasn't sure if he was speaking to her or to himself. "You can rest now." Emma didn't respond. She just stood there, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an exit. Ethan watched her for a moment before turning to leave. He was about to close the door when her small voice stopped him. "Why are you helping us?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan paused, his hand on the doorframe. He turned back to look at her, his eyes softening. "Because no child should ever be left alone, Emma. And because I couldn't just walk away." Emma blinked, her gaze never leaving him. For a second, there was a flicker of something in her eyes, a mixture of relief and fear. She nodded slowly, her fingers tightening around the blanket that wrapped Noah. Ethan stepped outside, closing the door gently behind him. The sound of the latch clicking shut was louder than it should have been. He leaned against the wall of the hallway, his mind racing. What the hell had happened to Sarah Evans? And why had she left her children in that house? His phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a text from Samantha. "I've got the baby supplies. Is everything okay with them?" Ethan stared at the message for a moment before typing back, "Not yet. I need to find out what happened to their mother." He sent the message, then stood there lost in thought. But the silence in the penthouse was deafening. It was too still, too quiet, and that uneasy feeling like something was lurking just beyond the edge of his consciousness gnawed at him again. Later that evening, Ethan sat in his home office, his mind still consumed by the mystery surrounding Emma and Noah. He had pulled up the files on Sarah Evans, hoping to find something that might give him a clue. The reports were sparse. She had been a former investigative reporter working on a piece about Horizon Pharmaceuticals, a biotech company with ties to some very shady dealings. There was a record of her filing a story about unsafe drug trials, but then nothing. She had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only whispers of what she had been investigating. Ethan was interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Samantha holding a file in her hands. "I found something," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "I think you need to see this." She handed him the file and Ethan's eyes scanned the pages. As he read, his stomach twisted. It was a missing persons report for Sarah Evans. She had gone missing just 3 weeks ago, right after she had made an alarming discovery about Horizon Pharmaceuticals' involvement in a massive drug cover-up. Ethan's pulse quickened as he flipped through the pages. Sarah had uncovered evidence that one of Horizon's drugs was causing life-threatening side effects in children. She had been ready to expose the company, but before she could do so, she vanished. Who would go to these lengths to silence someone like her? Samantha asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan didn't have an answer, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just a case of a missing person. This was something far more dangerous. Sarah had been hunting down the truth, and now it seemed the truth was hunting her. The next morning, Ethan made a decision. He was going to find Sarah Evans, and he was going to uncover the secrets that Horizon Pharmaceuticals had buried, no matter what it cost him. But as he turned to leave his office, the intercom buzzed. A voice came through, distorted but urgent. "Ethan," it said, "you need to get out of there. They know where you are. I'm so sorry for the interruption in the story, but trust me, it's only going to get more intense. What do you think? Do you believe Ethan should risk everything to uncover the truth? Or is it too dangerous to get involved any deeper? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, where are you watching from? I'd love to know what part of the world you're in. And don't forget to hit the like button and share this video if you believe in standing up for what's right." The days following Ethan's discovery felt like they were slipping through his fingers, every moment laced with anxiety. The weight of the truth was suffocating, and yet the pressure to expose it grew stronger with every passing hour. He couldn't shake the image of Emma and Noah, their fragile, trusting eyes, and he knew they weren't just innocent victims in a tragic story. They were part of a much bigger, darker picture. That afternoon, Ethan met with Nina Reyes, a former FBI agent turned private consultant. Nina had the expertise, and most importantly, she had the kind of resolve that Ethan needed. Together, they had to figure out how to bring down Horizon Pharmaceuticals, but this wasn't going to be easy. They were up against a billion-dollar company with the power to silence anyone who stood in their way. Sitting in the conference room of Ethan's penthouse, Nina flipped through the documents he had compiled. The evidence Sarah Evans had gathered about Horizon's illegal drug trials was damning, but it was buried under layers of corporate deceit and threats. If they exposed it, the consequences would be catastrophic, not just for the company, but for everyone involved. "So what's the plan?" Nina asked, her voice calm, but her eyes sharp with focus. Ethan leaned forward, his fingers pressed together deep in thought. We need to be smart about this. We can't just throw it all out there. We need to make sure the people who need to hear this, who need to know the truth, do so without it coming back on Sarah or her kids. The stakes were high. Nina had already warned him this wasn't just a legal battle. It was a war, and the other side was prepared to do whatever it took to protect their empire. As they devised their strategy, Ethan couldn't help but think about Sarah, about the mother who had tried so desperately to protect her children. Emma and Noah had been through enough already, and the last thing Ethan wanted was to throw them into more danger. But the truth couldn't stay buried, not when so many lives were at risk. Later that night, Sarah came to Ethan's penthouse. She looked exhausted, worn down by the constant worry and fear that had gripped her every day since she'd gone into hiding. But there was something in her eyes, a spark of determination, the same spark that had driven her to uncover the corruption at Horizon Pharmaceuticals. I've been thinking about what you said, Sarah began, her voice steady but quiet. You're right. This is bigger than us. It's about exposing the truth. Ethan nodded, his eyes meeting hers. You've already sacrificed so much. Now it's time for the world to know. Together they made the decision. The truth would be revealed, but they wouldn't do it recklessly. They would use the media, the press, everything they had to expose Horizon Pharmaceuticals' criminal activities in a way that would be undeniable. It wasn't just about taking down a company, it was about saving lives, about making sure no more children suffered because of corporate greed. The day of the reveal, Ethan sat in his office watching the news unfold. The headlines flashed across the screen: Pharma giant under investigation, whistleblower exposes dangerous drug trials. Sarah's face was everywhere, her brave decision to come forward shaking the very foundations of Horizon. The public outcry was immediate, furious. Parents whose children had been harmed by the drug spoke out demanding justice. Senators called for hearings, and the Department of Justice launched a full criminal investigation. Within hours, Horizon Pharmaceuticals stock plummeted, and the CEO, Trevor Ames, was arrested while attempting to flee the country. It was a victory, but one that came with a cost. The company was crumbling, and the people who had once protected it were now being exposed for what they truly were: corrupt, ruthless, and willing to sacrifice anything for profit. But for Ethan, the victory was bittersweet. The truth had come to light, but Sarah's family was still at risk. The threats didn't stop. As the investigation intensified, Horizon's lawyers and hired guns were coming after them, determined to silence anyone who had dared to speak out. Despite the danger, Ethan knew that what they had started couldn't be undone. Sarah, Emma, and Noah would be safe, but they would never be the same. Neither would Ethan. He had walked into this story with no idea of what he would find, and now he found himself deeply changed. The pursuit of wealth had always driven him before, but now it was the pursuit of justice, the protection of the innocent, that consumed him. Days later, Sarah, Emma, and Noah moved into a quieter part of Los Angeles, away from the prying eyes of the media and the threats that still loomed. Ethan made sure they had everything they needed: a new life, far removed from the danger that had chased them for so long. Emma ran through the park laughing for the first time in weeks, her bare feet hitting the grass as the sun dipped below the horizon. Noah, still too young to understand the weight of the world on his tiny shoulders, giggled as his mother cradled him in her arms. Ethan watched from a distance, a feeling of peace settling over him for the first time in a long while. He had made the right choice. Sometimes the most extraordinary stories don't start with fortune or fame. They begin with something far more powerful: a single moment of courage. Sarah walked over to him, a small smile tugging at her lips. You know, maybe this mansion wasn't just meant to hide us. Maybe it was meant to find us. Ethan smiled back, his heart heavy but full. Maybe, he said, glancing over at Emma and Noah, running freely without fear. Or maybe I was meant to find you. The sun set behind the hills, casting a golden light across the park. For once, everything felt right. Everything felt at peace. What do you think? Do you believe Ethan made the right choice by helping Sarah, Emma, and Noah? Or should he have stayed out of it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And what's your opinion on the story? Did it surprise you how one decision could change everything? If you like this story, comment number 3 below. If you think there's room for improvement, comment number 1. And if you feel it's just all right, comment number 2. Where are you watching from? I'd love to know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share, and send some love by leaving a heart on the video.